get kids to read books in the summer. One British library hired a man in a red and purple gorilla suit to wave a dildo at passing cars in the name of anti-racism. No kids bothered to check out the books, but activists did complain that the dildo was white. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is, believe it or not, The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Before we start, I want to remind our audience that we are not just about bringing you the problems in education. We do have solutions. Our Judeo-Christian online classical school, Freedom Project Academy, is experiencing record enrollments. Classes are filling up fast. In fact, this is our last week for students for this fall. Please, you've 1 week to get involved. We'll see it through the end of next week, but that's it. So get ready to get on board this train, because this train is leaving the education station. I encourage everyone to visit freedomforschool.com. That's freedomforschool.com, and take a look at our classes, our books, our teachers, and our sneak peek videos. Take back control of your kids' education at Freedom Project Academy. Okay, we start with an incredibly disturbing story out of London. When did children... See, this is the illogical progression here. We start, for some reason, we figure out it's a good idea to show drag queens to 5-year-olds. Now that's morphed into sexual dancing and dildos, sex toys, waving in the face of men, women, and children. London, where's the Clash when you need it? London calling. Somebody needs to bomb that drop some bombs on the Casbah, whatever it is. But here's the problem. We have a library in London which attempted to promote a kids reading program. What does adult man in a gorilla suit with a grotesque dildo hanging between his legs, what does this have to do with getting people to read? I don't know, but I suppose before you wonder why I'm even talking about this issue, take a look at the pictures for yourself. There's our fella there, hired by a library aimed at little children, trying to get those kids to read. And if the costume isn't stupid enough, here they come rushing out into the street. There's Gorilla Man with his flapping plastic phallus and his apparently buttless cheeks. And then you've got a strawberry that looks from behind awfully like a penis. And you've got, for some random reason, some little dinosaur out there. And they're dancing around, and he's sort of reverse twerking, isn't he, with his plastic sex toy between his legs. This is what it's come to. Now, this is supposed to make British kids rush to the library and start reading books. Somehow, I just don't think that's going to happen.
All right, well, let's get to some of the details. This was the Redbridge Central Library, and they hosted a performance by the Mandinga Arts Carnival Group. So that's where all of the colors and costumes and everything came from, the Mandinga Arts Carnival Group. And as you saw the video footage, and it was shared on social media, so everyone was able to critique it, the rainbow-colored monkey had the penis there.
Yep.
The little dildo hanging out, and also you can see some nipples, and if you, again, when you turned around, you saw some open cheeks.
It's like a cross between Cats and Avatar.
There you go.
For God's sake.
This whole thing was supposed to be part of the summer reading challenge for the children ages 4 to 11, and it's in partnership with the World Wildlife Fund, the WWF, for, quote, a very special nature-themed challenge that will inspire you to stand up for the planet, end quote. Yes. This challenge said that with school life disrupted and many children missing the company of their friends, this year's fun-filled summer reading challenge will be all the more vital as a way of helping caregivers find fun, family-friendly activities, maintain literacy levels, and create a safe space for children to connect with their peers.
Notice that a safe space includes a dildo and a dancing penis strawberry.
Yes, as Monkey Mayhem described.
Monkey Mayhem.
Escaped from the circus, these trio of acrobatic monkeys are causing havoc across town.
But they're not monkeys.
They climb, they roll, they tumble, but nothing makes them go bananas like being mischievous.
But only one of us
and having a good laugh.
But but
yeah,
only one
we
of them
can, yes.
is
First
actually...
created in 2008, these monkeys have been entertaining audiences across Europe and the UK. They are highly engaging and love audience interaction, ideal for all kind of family, outdoor...
There's only one monkey there.
Festivals.
Excuse me, I don't understand.
Well, all of them, maybe you only got one of the monkeys. Maybe that's it, because it's from the whole thing they do. Whatever. The point is, there was a little bit of backlash to this entire thing. How did that happen? But there was some backlash, and the library apologized. They said during an event put on at the library today, there was a performance by Carnival Arts Company. Unfortunately, one of the animal costumes was inappropriate, which we were not aware of at the time of booking. We deeply apologize for the offense caused. This is being investigated and further statement will be made. And apparently, according to the library, the event was organized by Vision, which is a local charity, not the actual Red Bridge Council. So the library and the local municipality is trying to apologize for what this basically outsourced group did.
I find it very hard to believe that they did not look at the costumes. You're going to hire sight unseen without even checking them out online. It doesn't make any sense.
How about seeing them in the library when they took that picture? You could have been like, no, go away.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. This never would have flown otherwise. And so meanwhile, you get this. And could somebody please explain the correlation between this and reading in 5-year-olds? What possible connection is there?
It gives a whole new definition of Rainbow Bright, I'll tell you that much.
It's all
she
sorts
was
of,
good. Rainbow Bright was great.
All sorts of craziness.
That is not. Well, the same library, the one who is saying, well, we haven't ever, I swear we're sorry, we didn't mean to offend, also has regularly had Drag Queen Story Hour with Mama G. So I don't think they really apologized. And there was a tweet. It was a tweet from another library, and they had saying that was a shock when Monkey turned around, and then they see, because there was a bare butt showing. It was a shock, and then they had an emoji, as you can see, a smiley emoji. And the Redbridge Library response wasn't, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry we had that monkey there." It was, "I know. Monkey's out of control." Get it? Because but when you've got it, flaunt it, I suppose. Clearly, they're not really sorry.
No, they're not sorry. And one more way in which the sexualization of children is a weird component of being woke. To be woke means you've got to take delight in sexually shocking children, sexually provoking children. Remember when we talked about some of these drag queen hours before, you actually had little boys, 6 and 7 years old, dressing like drag queens in gay bars and had money being stuffed in their pants.
Alrighty, before we move on, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store and make sure, once you download, that you allow for notifications. Also, if you like listening to the audio podcast, we're available on Apple, Google, SoundCloud, and everywhere else.
Why are you talking so slow?
Because I like to whisper.
Okay.
Joe Biden. Moving on. We have the dancing monkeys onto the singing gay choir of men. It's like the Brady Bunch, but not.
Why would, so you have an all-gay male choir.
You're already questioning what I'm doing.
An all-gay male choir.
Yes.
And why is that something we're not complaining about? Harvard can't have an all-boys choir anymore. It's got to be intergender. Why do the gay men get to be gay men exclusively?
Well, the Hufflepuffs still exist at Yale, so.
They exist, but they're not in the choir.
They're their own choir. So they're their own thing.
You got an all-male choir. You have an all-men who like men choir. No one seems to be bothered by that lack of diversity. But guess what those men are coming for? Guess what those gay men are after in the choir?
Calling
yes,
me.
Ma'am.
I'm pretty sure in the last segment you hinted at it. Your children.
They want your kids.
So the San Francisco Men's Choir sang a song about how they are coming for your children. It's actually part of the lyrics. And how they are going to convert your children. And that convert not to being smarter, better citizens, but just to being gay. And so the choir director, Chris Verdugo, claimed that the tune is a message from the gay community, that it was satirical. Listen to it and see if you take it as it being satire.
Does this sound like satire?
We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep him from disco. Warn about San Francisco. Make him wear pleated pants, we don't care. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're gonna try a little pride. We'll convert your children.
Now, isn't this wonderful? First of all, now we have a theme song for NAMBLA.
There we
now
go.
we have an official song for NAMBLA, number one. And number two, isn't it interesting that if you suggest converting people away from gayness, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. States all across the union have banned conversion therapy to suggest that gay is anything more than a mainstream biologically approved choice is to be a bigot. And yet, what are they going to do to your non-gay kids? We're going to convert them. Maybe we ought to have the same rules apply. Maybe there should be gay conversion therapy the other way banned. It is no longer allowed for gay men, predatory, weird gay men, to come after your kids to gay them up. Maybe we could have that law. What do you think? Would that law storm the legislatures the way the non-conversion laws have?
Well, that would just be a simple protest then,
Yeah.
versus storming things. Well, the video, again, they claim it. So here's what happened. They released the video, and then there was backlash. I can't believe it happened. And then they were like, whoa, it's satirical. And then they privatized the video. And so they decided to recast it again once... I don't know. Here's what they said about it. We placed the video in private mode to quell the intolerance and hateful responses from mostly anonymous people. Upon reflection, we have made it live again for all to see the satirical and obviously tongue-in-cheek humor. We want everyone to judge for themselves. We will not allow ourselves, even in the face of death threats, to retreat or bow to attempts to twist our words, meaning self-deprecation and humor.
Twisting their words.
Okay, if you listen to the actual lyrics... All right. They say what they're still going to do.
Quote them. Go ahead.
So they say, you think we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children, happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. Is that not what we've been having these past how many years? This is exactly this is how they're doing it. You can keep them from disco, as he said. Warn about San Francisco, make them wear pleated pants, and then we heard all the rest of it too. At one point, some of the lyrics said Gen Z, which is the current, in high school and college generation, is gayer than Grindr. Grindr's like Tinder, but for gay men to go on, I guess. And grandma likes RuPaul, because RuPaul's drag race. Even if this entire thing was satirical and they wanted to show this to the children, that's that subtle messaging that they're putting there. So it's not satire at all.
This goes hand in glove with the first story. I mean, what you're doing here is you're in the name of playfulness and, oh boy, how could anybody be upset about a purple and red gorilla? What you're feeding these, you're using the tropes of childhood to sexualize children, particularly towards gay issues or towards gay identities. You think you're doing this in the name of tolerance. This is nothing satire, but go back to the statement, Mike, and look at the second paragraph. The far-right conservative media found our message. Oh yeah. This is always the way the gambit goes, right? They do this kind of outrageous stuff, like saying, "We're coming for your children. We're coming for your kids, and there's nothing you can do about it." And when somebody protests, this is the far right. Because it's only the far right who's concerned about critical race theory. It's just the Proud Boys are the only ones that care about this.
It's always the... We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Someone pushes back. Why are you pushing back on us? What?
You must be right wing.
You must be far right.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is they said that they set this to private too, because we are an organization whose mission really is both artistic but also activist. And
well,
again,
then it's not satire.
Then exactly. We are the first gay men's chorus on the planet. We are a social justice organization.
That's right.
So it's very difficult for us to decide to take down that video. But the soloists, men who are not in the choir, but in their own right, rising Broadway stars, they had to put that part in there, have received death threats. And then obviously that makes it the far right who's done
you're
this.
surprised that when you threaten that you're coming for people's children, that you're
someone's
going to do things to them against your will. You think I'm not condoning death threats. I've never offered one in my whole life. However, you're surprised you're getting them when you're telling people, looking them in the eye and say, we are coming for your kids. Bro, you don't see that as a problem. No, that's satire. Well, guess what? Maybe all that right-wing death threat stuff that you've made up, maybe that's just satire too. Oh, we wouldn't really kill you. No, that would never really happen. I mean, all this stuff cuts one way, and I go back to what I said before. You are, by your own admission, seeking to take children and make them gay. That's what you want to do. You're going to take them, you're going to subvert them, you're going to, in your own words, convert them. We just passed laws across the country making that illegal in many states for gay people. And transgenders too. No therapy allowed for gender-confused individual. No religious training, no religious therapy for those who might begin to recognize that much of this is choice and it's not biology. You've even said, with all of your gender language, we're learning from you, right? You keep telling us that gender is purely subjective. It's not biological or objective. It's purely subjective. If that's the case, then so is your homosexuality. Your homosexuality is as subjective as my heterosexuality.
Well, we've been saying it for basically years at this point, and it's been happening for decades. Baltimore city schools have been failing their children for decades, and it's continuing. The newest data is in. It shows more than 4 in 10 students have less than, below, worse than a D average, which is a 1.0 GPA. I'm saying it extra slow so you can listen and digest that information. When 4 in 10 students have less than a D average.
A 1.0 GPA, which is dangerously close to Bluto-Blutarski targets, right?
Oh my goodness.
Mr. Blutarski. 0.00. Dean Wormer quote there. Well, seriously, over 40% of Baltimore school kids have a 1.0 or below GPA. This is terribly unacceptable, but wasn't it just on this show a couple months ago? We reported that the Baltimore mayor said every student, no matter what their grade or grade point average this year, will be promoted to the next grade.
Well, it's the CEO of the schools.
Yep.
And I made this point at that time. If you have a CEO of your schools,
yeah, that's a problem.
That's problem number one. But the Project Baltimore is the one who kind of uncovered this, the local news there, and they reported on the statistic revealing it was 41% of students. There are 20,600 students. If 40% of those students are essentially failing.
This chart was assembled by Baltimore City Schools and obtained by Project Baltimore. It shows the average GPA for every high school grade in the city, freshman through senior. In the first 3 quarters of this past school year, according to the chart, 41% of all Baltimore City high school students earned below a 1.0 grade point average. In other words, nearly half of the roughly 20,600 public high school students in Baltimore earned less than a D average. In January, City School CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises first sounded the alarm, saying the course failure rate for students had nearly doubled during the COVID shutdowns. A few months later, in May, North Avenue announced students would not be held back for failing classes.
Why would you hold them back for failing classes?
What?
Now look, with incoming critical race theory, we have an answer for all this. Those kids failed because of systemic racism. Therefore, grades themselves are bad. See, if that many kids are getting a D, and most of them, let's face it, this is inner city Baltimore, most of them are not white. If most of these kids are getting Ds, that's systemic racism. And the only way we fix this is not to teach our kids how to read and write. The only way we fix this is to ignore their grades and pass them anyway. This is what if I was the mother or father of an African-American inner-city Baltimore kid, and their response to my kid's failure was, it's not your fault, and this is how we're gonna fix it. we're going to take your ignorant kid and artificially stick him in the next grade. Yeah, he can't read, he can't write. But hey, now he's the equal of the other kids simply by being in the same grade. Is there a larger, more glaring systemic racism than that coming from progressive idiots? Isn't that your real systemic racism? That we have surrendered any attempt to educate your children. We're not going to do it. And when they fail, and the teachers fail, and the school board fails, and the superintendents fail, and the state fails, we're going to blame systemic racism and put your ignorant kid one grade further, letting him know nothing.
Baltimore's been failing for decades. It went from being, last year, 24% in the second quarter of the students failing, 24 up to this 41%. And as we said, it's the pandemic's fault, it's a pandemic. And so that's why that Sonia Santalis, the CEO, had said, well, we can't hold kids back because it was a pandemic's fault. So not that they're, like bad kids or anything, but let's just push them ahead. It doesn't matter if they actually didn't learn anything.
But there are a lot of school districts across the country where kids, 41% didn't fail.
We're talking about Baltimore here,
Baltimore's
okay?
unusual. See, Baltimore, apparently the systemic
Baltimore's
racism.
special.
It's a school, it's a city with almost all black administrators, right? A city that has almost completely an African-American city. And yet it has been for quite a while now. But yet it's systemic white people who are doing this. It is time for some real education, and this real education is an homage, the title of it, to Jake Jacobs, one of our dear friends, and a very articulate, critical voice against this kind of left-wing lunacy. He actually wrote a book called Mobocracy. And looking in the news today, we look around the country and we see that it is mobs. It is mobs of people, small groups of revolutionaries who are using violence and disobedience and vandalism and arson to get their way. And so we want to use Mobocracy as the title of our instant classic this week. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at some great quotes and comments down through history about mobs and why mobs are so effective at being so destructive. It's amazing how long ago they knew this about mobs. The ancient Greeks knew it very well. In fact, the Greeks, all the ancient peoples, but the Greeks in particular, were very, very, very unimpressed by mob behavior. They knew that mobs themselves were anarchy. How about this great quote from Diogenes talking about what the foundation of education is? Diogenes wrote, "The foundation of every state is the education of its youth." Think about what that means for Baltimore, as we just said. What does it say about the United States? If the foundation of every state is how we educate our kids, and 41% of all Baltimore school kids are getting a D or below, what does that say about us? That gives rise to the next quote. The mob is the mother of tyrants. Those kids who can't read, can't write, yet who have been told it's not their fault, that their ignorance is the result of racism and cultural supremacy and white supremacy. What do you think is going to happen to those kids who can't look after their own families, who can't get jobs, who are qualified to do nothing because the public schools refuse to educate them? When those kids turn out into the streets with high school diplomas that mean nothing, they're prime picking for idiot groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. The mob is the mother of tyrants. And how about the great Roman historian Polybius, who understood as well as anybody the absurdity of allowing civilization to be overturned by mobs? Quote, "For the mob, habituated to feed at the expense of others and to have its hopes of a livelihood in the property of its neighbors, as soon as it has got a leader sufficiently ambitious and daring, being excluded by poverty from the sweet civil honors, produces a reign of mere violence." All mobs. Look at Antifa. Someone else is paying for them. Someone else is feeding them. They expect to grow rich. We hear the phrase from Antifa, "Eat the rich," right? We're going to burn it all down. We're going to throw civilization into chaos so we can take from the rich people that which belongs to us. But you know what always happens, Polybius says? Sooner or later, some slick huckster like, Patrisse Cullors and the leadership of Black Lives Matter comes and co-opts the movement, takes all that money to themselves, and leave the mob just as poor and stupid as it was before. When you're buying 4 houses, Patrice, even though you're against capitalism, when you're building a big fence around your Hollywood mansion, even though you believe in open borders, the hypocrisy and the justice of what Polybius just wrote is true.
All right, well, if you enjoy our content, please consider joining the Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation allows us to keep bringing you stories every day. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And of course, as a little thank you, we will ship you our signature tumbler. Now, before we go, let's show some love to our current Patriot Club members. And today we're giving a shout out to Tina from Greendale, Wisconsin. Tina, thank you for supporting us.
And that's our show for Freedom Project. I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.